Welcome to Beat Diabetes. I'm Dennis Pollock, and I want to share some testimonies of victory and then talk about the whole concept of glucose testing, or at least my take on it. So here's one testimony. Love your vids. I was diagnosed as diabetic. My mother was diabetic also. My A1C was 8.6 and glucose read 389. That is incredibly high. I was shocked and totally devastated as I thought my diet was well controlled with no carbonated drinks and no red meat. So if that's your answer to beating diabetes, probably not going to work. No carbonated drinks, no red meat, not going to fix anything. I was stunned to learn it was carbs and sugar that caused my body to go haywire. It was carbs and sugar. Amen to that. I have learned so much from this channel. My last A1C was 5.6. So they went from 8.6 to 5.6. They say I was so excited about my progress. I was taken off the meds, and hopefully with diet and exercise, I'll be able to maintain med-free. Well, here is another thrilled former diabetic. That's the way I call it. I know some people would argue with me. But when you were in the 8s and now you're in the 5s for an A1C, something has happened significantly. There's been some reversal going on. Another testimony. Thank you for your videos. My doctor has gone from despairing comments on my management to calling me an inspiration. As my A1C has dropped from 9 something down to 4.6. Wow, 9 to 4.6, all thanks to no carbs and fasting between 5 p.m. and 8 a.m., so doing the intermittent fasting thing, all due to you and a bit of Dr. Jason Fung. Wow, that is exciting, thrilling. I mean, there are a lot of doctors that probably go all their practices, all their lives, all their careers, that never see one testimony that powerful. 9 A1C to 4.6. I mean, 4.6 is perfection. That's what little 14-year-old boys and girls get. And they've gone from the 9s. Here's another one. I planted a fig tree several years ago. It's a marvelous producer. This year, and they call it the year of Mike, I ate just 2 of my wonderful figs, nothing else. 1 hour later, Mike, the meter, said 188. 2 hours later, Mike was not impressed. It was at 190. Not satisfied with that result, one time I tried again the next day, over 200 after eating the figs. I must say I will miss my figs, but I cannot argue with Mike. Speaking of their glucose meter, I've started on the carnivore diet after watching all of your videos. My morning fasting blood sugars come down from the mid to high 170s to the low to mid 110s. My very, very personal thanks to you and your videos. So all of these people had tremendous success. They learned some things by glucose testing. And, all tests that test blood sugar for people that are moving toward diabetes or you're already there and well past it, all glucose tests have value, whether it's an A1C, whether it's a glucose control test, the oral type, whether it is a fasting test. And then my favorite of all is the post-meal test. But any and all tests have value, and they give you information that you need to know. And the more you can test yourself, the more data, the more input, the more information, and the better off you will be to fight the good fight and win over this monster. But sadly, for a lot of people, a glucose test like an A1C or occasional fasting glucose test is just like a pass-fail. It's like if it's good, you passed. If it's bad, you fail. And that's not good enough. You've got to do more than just say, well, you failed. I mean, imagine a student who is given a test twice a year, and that's going to determine whether they pass or fail that year of school. So at the halfway point, they get a pass, but by the end they get a fail. Not very impressive, not very helpful. Sadly, for some people, the glucose test is something they want to avoid because it gives them bad news. It tells them you're failing. But I want to know more than that I'm failing. I want to know, why am I failing? How am I failing? And how does this relate to the foods that I put in my mouth? More important than anything, really. If I'm failing, okay, I'll accept it. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm doing fine. But I need to know, why am I failing? And I need to know, even better yet, is there anything I can change, any significant changes I can make in my diet or lifestyle that will cause me not to fail? But if I just take an occasional fasting glucose test, wake up in the morning, check my glucose, it reads 160, I get depressed. It's like, I don't want to do that again. So I wait several weeks and then decide, well, I guess I better test. I get up and this time it reads 170, depressing, and I put it away. Don't want to look at that for a long time. That's not the way to test your blood sugar, is just to do it occasionally and get depressed. What you need to do is to test how foods relate to you and how you relate to foods. You know, Dr. Bernstein once said that you should know more about diabetes than your doctor knows. Well, for most people, that's probably not very practical. The reality is doctors are probably going to know a lot more about diabetes and a lot of other medical issues than you do. They've been to medical school, you don't. They see patients constantly, you don't. So, no, probably most of you are not going to know more about diabetes than your doctor, although in some cases you may. But one thing you should determine, I want to know more about my own body and how it relates to food than my doctor does. I may not know more than my doctor about diabetes in general, but I can tell you I know a lot more about how my body responds to foods and which foods work for me and which don't. So if my doctor says, for example, well, you really need to start eating Ezekiel bread and get rid of the white bread, I'm going to say, well, doc, I don't eat white bread, but Ezekiel bread doesn't do me much more good than the white bread. It still raises my blood sugar. If my doctor says, well, sweet potatoes are fine. If my doctor says, oatmeal is a superfood, it's a mega super healthy food, I'll say, well, doc, maybe that's so. You know, I can't say that I've gone around and checked with everybody, but what I do know is oatmeal doesn't work for me. And so I know more about me. I've been a researcher on Dennis Pollock, and lo and behold, what I do on this YouTube channel is I just share what I find works for Dennis Pollock, and lo and behold, seems to work for a lot of other people. But you look at these testimonies, especially the one that really floored me, from 9 to 4.6. Amazing. And what they found is the same thing that I found, which is carbohydrates are a real problem for diabetics, other than the carbs that are in the low-carb vegetable area of the grocery store, the leafy greens and things like that. I can handle a few carbs, and I know that I can, but I can't handle a lot of carbs. And just because something is natural doesn't mean it's necessarily good for me. Ezekiel bread may be natural. They may make it from all kinds of natural grains, but it still doesn't work for me. So, testimonies like these are not the exception for people that will really follow the plan and reduce the carbs and test. And don't you turn Mike the glucose meter into a pass-fail kind of a teacher, where you just test yourself once every couple of months and then you get depressed and you don't do it anymore. You begin to test after meals, like an hour to an hour and 15 minutes after you eat a meal, and see how far it raises your blood sugar. How far do you go out of bounds? And then you adjust accordingly. And you're going to find out there are a lot of foods that are just not going to spike your blood sugar much at all. And there are a lot of foods that will, and you begin to discriminate. We use a word these days that I never used to hear growing up, or even in my 20s and 30s, but I hear it all the time in the news, and that is vetting. You got to vet people. Well, when you talk about vetting someone, you're talking about taking a good look at their background and seeing, are they, what kind of a person are they? You should vet doctors, check on the internet and find out whether they have good reports or bad reports. If they've got a 5-star system and your doctor that you've been going to only has 2.5 stars, it might be time to look for a different doctor. But more important than even doctors is vet your foods and check them out with Mike the glucose meter and find out what they do to you. And these kind of testimonies that I've just shared with you are just a tiny fraction of the testimonies that come pouring in to this channel constantly of people that are thrilled and excited, and the truth has gotten out that by judiciously limiting your carbs and eating healthy whole foods and not fake junk foods, you'll do yourself a tremendous favor. And who knows, I may be reading your testimony one of these days on this channel. In addition to Beat Diabetes, Benedict and I do have another YouTube channel and another type of ministry. I'm referring to our Bible teaching channel, which goes by my name, Dennis Pollock. While you can only see Benedicta with me on Beat Diabetes occasionally, you can see us study the Bible together at our dining room table every Thursday. With all that we're doing, producing hundreds of videos and podcasts, sponsoring African missions, helping diabetics reverse their diabetes, giving food to African widows, and sponsoring free medical clinics in Nigeria and Kenya, we need your help. Please consider making regular contributions to Spirit of Grace Ministries.